I never thought I'd be the kind of girl to have a first love story. You know, the kind you see in movies. A sweet, slow burn of perfect moments, shared glances, and this overwhelming feeling that everything was just meant to be. But when I met Jack, that's exactly what it felt like. He was my first everything. My first real boyfriend, my first kiss, my first time being truly in love. He was kind, caring, and for a while, he seemed to be everything I'd ever wanted. I really believed we were going to be that couple who stayed together forever. We met at college. I wasn't expecting much. Just a casual fling maybe, but Jack was different from anyone I'd met before. He wasn't one of those guys who played games. He was so genuine, so attentive. I loved that he took things slow. I'd never been in a serious relationship before, and for him, I think it was the same. He was my first, and that felt so special. He was patient, understanding, and always made sure I felt comfortable. It felt like we were building something really meaningful. The more time we spent together, the more I realized that I wanted him to be my first, my one and only. It wasn't just about love, it was about trust, respect, and this sense of being safe with him. We didn't rush things physically. We took our time, and when we finally got intimate, it felt like everything was in perfect alignment. He was the first person I'd ever been with in that way, and I knew, deep down, that he meant something truly special to me. One night, after one of those perfect dates where we just talked and laughed for hours, he looked me in the eyes and said, "You're the first person I've ever been this serious with. I hope that means something to you." And it did. I never felt more cherished, more important, than in that moment. But here's the thing. Even when things were good, a part of me started feeling restless. I didn't know how to explain it to him, and I didn't want to hurt him, but I started to feel suffocated. Not by him, but by the expectations. By the idea that we had to be this perfect couple forever. It was all too much. I wasn't ready to settle down. Not in the way that I thought I was. I still had so much I wanted to experience, so much I wanted to know about myself, but I didn't know how to tell him that. Then, everything started to shift when we went to that club. He'd always been so against places like that. He hated clubs, the noise, the crowds. And I understood why. He thought they were shallow, just a place for people to hook up, nothing meaningful. But I insisted, saying it would be fun to let loose for one night, just to see what it was like. I didn't think anything would happen. I just wanted a night to be carefree, without overthinking. The club was loud, chaotic, but there was something thrilling about it. I wasn't used to being in such an environment, but there was this energy in the air that made me feel free. And then I saw him. The stranger. I didn't mean for it to happen. Honestly, I didn't. But when our eyes met across the room, I felt an immediate pull. It was like an electric current that passed between us. He was tall, dark-haired, and just magnetic. He wasn't doing anything special. He just stood there, looking at me, and for some reason, I couldn't look away. I tried to brush it off, to focus on my friends, but every time I glanced over, there he was, his gaze never wavering. Eventually, he made his way over. He wasn't pushy, but his confidence was undeniable. He didn't ask me anything personal, didn't try to get too deep. He just talked about random stuff, but in a way that made me feel like I was the only person in the room. I was intrigued. I wanted to know more. Maybe it was the alcohol, maybe it was just the thrill of being somewhere I shouldn't have been, but something inside me told me that I had to keep talking to him. As the night went on, I felt this strange mix of guilt and excitement. It wasn't like anything with Jack was bad, but I couldn't deny that this stranger was making me feel something I hadn't felt in a long time. It wasn't just the attraction. It was a rush, like I was doing something rebellious, something dangerous. I was nervous, but that feeling was what I craved. And before I knew it, we were alone in a corner, talking even more intimately. His lips brushed against mine, and everything that had been holding me back seemed to fall away. It was wild, it was different, and for the first time in a long while, I felt alive. I knew I'd have to face the consequences of this later, but in that moment, I didn't care. I didn't think about Jack, or how this might hurt him. I didn't think about the life I'd been building with him. All I cared about was the rush of the moment, the feeling of being wanted and desired in a way I hadn't felt in a while. That night, I went home with a sinking feeling in my chest, but also a strange satisfaction that I couldn't quite explain. I told myself it was just a mistake, that it didn't mean anything. But deep down, I knew that this was just the beginning of something I didn't fully understand. The next few days were a blur. I thought I'd be able to push it out of my mind, to go back to my routine with Jack like nothing happened, but I couldn't. Every time I looked at him, I felt this weight in my chest, like I was hiding something from him. I tried to act normal, but every time he smiled at me, every time he held my hand, I couldn't shake the image of the stranger's face, his hands on me, his lips pressing against mine. I hated myself for it. I hated that I had done something so stupid, something that felt so wrong, but at the same time, there was this part of me that was afraid of facing the reality of what it meant. What did it mean for us? For me, Jack had been so good to me, so understanding, and I felt like I had betrayed him in the worst way. Jack didn't know anything yet, but there were moments when I thought he could tell something was off. Maybe it was the way I'd start to pull away when he kissed me, or the way I wasn't as eager to talk about our plans like I used to. He was still the same, so sweet, so patient, and he was completely unaware of what was brewing inside me. I tried to keep up the facade. We'd spend time together like everything was fine. We'd talk about the future, about our next vacation, about stupid little things that didn't matter, just to fill the silence. But I couldn't escape what had happened, and I couldn't stop thinking about how things had changed since that night in the club. And it wasn't just the kiss that was bothering me, it was everything that came after. The way I felt around the stranger, the way he made me feel seen in a way I hadn't felt in so long. I couldn't help but compare him to Jack. The more I thought about it, the more I realized how much of my relationship with Jack had been built on this image of what I thought love should look like. But the stranger. With him, everything felt raw and real. And then there was the part of me that just didn't want to let go. The part of me that loved Jack, that knew what we had was real and good. But the other side of me, well, it was restless. I wanted more than what I had. I wanted the excitement, the passion, the unpredictability. And in that moment, I realized I'd been fooling myself into thinking I didn't want those things, into thinking I was content. But I wasn't. So, I did the only thing I thought I could do to avoid facing the truth. I buried it. I pushed it down deep, pretending everything was fine. I told myself that maybe it was just a one-time thing. Maybe it didn't mean anything. I convinced myself I'd never see the stranger again, that I'd never let it happen again. But I couldn't stop thinking about him. His face haunted me. It was like his eyes were following me around every corner. And then came the inevitable. I ran into him again. It happened a few days after that night, when Jack and I went to dinner. We were walking out of the restaurant, laughing about something silly, when I saw him across the street. He was standing there, looking right at me, like he had been waiting for me. My heart stopped. I immediately turned away, but I felt this heat on my face, this sick feeling in my stomach. I couldn't breathe. I wanted to run, but instead, I just pretended I didn't see him. I told Jack I was just tired and wanted to go home. But inside, I was panicking. What if Jack had seen him? What if he knew? That night, when we got home, Jack kissed me goodnight, and as he pulled away, he looked at me with this confused expression. "You okay?" he asked softly. "You seem off." I didn't know what to say. The guilt was so heavy in my chest, I could barely breathe. I just nodded, giving him a weak smile. "Yeah, I'm fine," I said. But inside, I felt like I was about to crack open. I couldn't hold it in much longer. It wasn't long before the truth came out. I knew it couldn't last. I knew, deep down, that the lies and the guilt would eventually catch up to me. And they did. A few days after the restaurant incident, Jack asked me a question that I should have been prepared for, but I wasn't. He came to me, his face serious, his voice soft but firm. I knew something had shifted, but I had no idea how close he was to uncovering everything. "Hey, I've been thinking," he started, sitting next to me on the couch. I could see he was trying to stay calm, but his eyes betrayed him. They were searching mine, looking for something. Some sign, some hint of what I had been hiding. "You've been acting weird lately, and I feel like there's something going on. Is there something you're not telling me?" The question hit me like a punch in the gut. My first instinct was to lie, to tell him everything was fine. But the way he looked at me, with that tenderness in his eyes, made it almost impossible. I could see the trust he had in me, and I knew I had broken it. And that's when it hit me. I was about to lose him. I looked down at my hands, nervously twisting the fabric of my jeans. I tried to gather my thoughts, but my throat was tight. "Jack," I whispered, feeling the weight of the words before I even said them. "I'm so sorry. I made a huge mistake. I kissed someone else." He froze. For a second, I thought he didn't hear me, Or maybe he didn't want to. But when he looked up at me, his eyes were full of disbelief, like he was trying to process what I had just said. You kissed someone else. His voice was barely above a whisper. It wasn't anger I heard. It was confusion, pain, and a little bit of disbelief. But, I thought, we were good. You were my first too. You said you loved me. How could you? I didn't mean for it to happen. I cut him off, my voice shaking. It was just a stupid mistake. I didn't think it through. I wasn't thinking at all. It's not like I wanted to hurt you, Jack, I swear. It was just this moment. This guy, he made me feel like I was someone else. Like I wasn't just your girlfriend, like I was free. And I didn't know how to handle that feeling. I'm so sorry. I could see the hurt in his eyes, but I could also see something else, something I wasn't expecting. I expected him to yell, to call me names, to demand answers. But instead, he just looked at me with this look of quiet hurt that cut me to the core. You're right, he said slowly, his voice thick with emotion. You weren't thinking, and I can't even begin to understand why you would do something like that. But I don't think I can keep doing this. I don't think I can keep pretending that everything's okay. I felt a sharp sting in my chest. The words hit harder than I expected. I wanted to cry, to beg him not to leave, but I knew deep down I didn't deserve to keep him. Not after what I'd done. Not after betraying his trust. I never wanted to hurt you, Jack, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I never wanted any of this. I wish I could take it all back. He shook his head, looking away for a moment before meeting my eyes again. I wish you could too. But what happened, it changed everything. And I can't pretend it didn't. The silence between us felt suffocating. I didn't know what to say. There was nothing I could say. He was right. I had ruined it. I had ruined something that was beautiful and real because I let myself get swept up in something I didn't even need. Jack stood up slowly, like he was gathering the strength to walk away. I think you need some time to figure out what you want, he said softly. But I don't think I'm the one to help you with that. I can't be here right now. I nodded, even though I didn't want to. I understand, I whispered. The words felt like knives in my throat, but they were the only ones that seemed right. He wasn't angry, he wasn't trying to hurt me, he was just done. I watched him walk toward the door, his steps slow, heavy, and before he left, he turned back to me one last time. I don't know if I'll ever be able to forgive you for this, a wise N, he said, his voice full of pain. But I hope you figure things out. For yourself. And just like that, he was gone. I stood there for a long time, frozen in place. My heart felt like it was breaking in two, but I couldn't bring myself to move. I had done this. I had destroyed something real, something that had meant everything to me. The days that followed Jack leaving felt like a slow unraveling of everything I had once known. My apartment, which used to feel like a home, now felt empty, echoing with the absence of him of us. I couldn't escape the weight of what I had done. I couldn't escape the guilt that gnawed at me every minute of every day. I kept thinking back to the night at the club, the way the stranger made me feel alive, wanted, seen in a way I hadn't felt in so long. It wasn't just the kiss, it was the rush of excitement, the freedom to be someone else, even just for a few minutes. I'd convinced myself that it was just a stupid mistake, that I'd been caught up in the moment. But the truth was harder to swallow. I had wanted it. I had been craving something more, something new. And it had cost me everything. But now, as I sat alone in my quiet apartment, I realized something. What I had with Jack wasn't just something safe or comfortable. It was real. He had been my first, and not just in the physical sense. He was my first love, my first experience of true connection. And I had destroyed that for a moment of selfishness. I had thrown away something that could have lasted, something that could have been everything. The days felt longer without him. I tried to distract myself, to go out with friends, to pretend like everything was fine, but it was impossible. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Jack's face, the hurt, the disappointment, and I knew that I had lost him for good. I would never be able to take back what I had done. One afternoon, I ran into one of our mutual friends, and she asked how I was holding up. I felt like a fraud, trying to mask the emptiness I was feeling. But she didn't know. No one knew how much I was suffering inside. I messed up, I said, the words coming out before I could stop them. I made a mistake that I can't fix. And now I don't know what to do. I miss him. My friend looked at me sympathetically. We all make mistakes. But sometimes, those mistakes are what teach us the most. I don't know what happened between you two, but if you really care about him, then you've got to do something. You can't just sit here and feel sorry for yourself forever. Her words hit me like a ton of bricks. She was right. I couldn't just sit around, wallowing in my own guilt. But I didn't know what to do. I didn't know if Jack would even listen to me anymore, let alone forgive me. How could I expect him to trust me again after everything I'd done? And then, one night, after weeks of feeling like a shell of myself, I decided I had to at least try. I couldn't let him go without saying everything that was in my heart. I needed to apologize. Truly apologize, and let him know how sorry I was for what I'd done. I drove to his place, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. I wasn't even sure if he'd be there or if he'd want to see me. But I couldn't let him slip away without a fight. I owed him that much. When I arrived, I knocked on his door, my heart pounding in my chest. It felt like time had stopped. A few moments later, Jack opened the door. His expression was unreadable, but there was a flicker of surprise in his eyes when he saw me standing there. He didn't say anything at first, just stood there, watching me. "Jack, I need to talk to you," I said, my voice trembling. "I know I don't deserve it, but I need you to hear me out. I am so sorry for what I did. I never meant to hurt you, I never meant to betray your trust. But I did. And now I have to live with the consequences. I hurt you, and I hate myself for that." He didn't interrupt me, but I could see the wall between us had grown taller. "Juan," he finally said, his voice cold. "You broke something that can't be fixed that easily. You were the person I trusted most. And now, I don't even know who you are anymore." I felt my chest tighten at his words. They stung, but I knew they were the truth. I wasn't the same person he had fallen in love with. I wasn't the girl he trusted. I wasn't the girl who would have never done something like this. "I'm sorry," I repeated, my voice barely above a whisper. "I'm sorry for everything. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I just wanted you to know that I regret what I did every single day. You were everything to me, Jack. And I know I ruined it. I'll never forgive myself." There was silence between us for what felt like an eternity. And then he shook his head, taking a step back. "I think it's time for both of us to move on, and done." The words hit me harder than anything else he'd said. He wasn't angry, he wasn't yelling at me. He was simply done, and I knew he was right. There was no going back. We couldn't just erase what had happened. And maybe, just maybe, we weren't meant to be. "I understand," I whispered. "Goodbye, Jack." He closed the door softly behind him, and for a long time, I stood there in the hallway, unable to move. I had lost him. Not just his love, but his trust. And that was the worst part of all. I had let my own selfishness destroy something beautiful. I had thrown away the only person who had ever truly been there for me. I don't know what the future holds. I don't know if Jack will ever forgive me, or if we'll ever cross paths again. But what I do know is this: I'll never forget what I had with him, and I'll never stop regretting what I lost.